Boris Johnson under pressure from his own MPs over tax rises as the Prime Minister prepares to unveil plans to fix England's social care system. The growing row about who should pay for it.
I just think it's a huge mistake. I think this is a real weather vane issue. I think breaking a manifesto pledge and just reaching for a tax lever, just think is wrong.
Also ahead, the boss of one of Prince Charles's charities stands down after allegations he helped a major donor secure an honour. A bright, shining star. Tributes are paid to Sarah Harding, the Girls Aloud singer who has died at the age of 39. 124 reasons to be proud as Paralympics GB end the Games in style, and more dog, less sausage. New rules for breeding the pets which might be getting too cute for their own good.
This is ITV News with Duncan Golestani.
Good evening. There is widespread agreement that the social care system in England needs fixing, but how to pay for the growing demands placed on services is much more divisive, as the Prime Minister is quickly realising. It was Boris Johnson who stood in Downing Street and promised to overhaul the system. Finally this week he is expected to unveil his reforms. But already MPs, including many of his own, are warning against increasing national insurance to pay for them. Here's our political correspondent Romilly Weeks.
It's the problem that successive governments have tried to bat away for over a decade. This week, Boris Johnson is finally expected to deliver his long-promised plan for adult social care. Those who work in the sector say the current system is stretched beyond endurance.
It's a time bomb, waiting to explode in terms of people out there who are needing of care and can't receive care. We see that every day, where there's a lot of pressure, funding pressure for people to go back home when they really need to be in residential care.
This was the promise made 2 years ago.
We will fix the crisis in social care once and for all.
If the Prime Minister finally makes good on that, it might involve breaking another, the manifesto pledge not to raise national insurance. It's expected a rise of at least 1% could be used to fund social care. Ministers today were reluctant to confirm tax rises could be on the way.
You're absolutely right in challenging ministers about how we will be reforming the adult social care system, which we are determined to do so. But I am not going to engage in a hypothetical discussion when we haven't yet published the details.
But there is already a growing backlash within the Tory party over what some see as a plan to tax younger workers to subsidise care for older people.
I just think it's a huge mistake. I think this is a real weather vane issue. I think breaking a manifesto pledge and just reaching for a tax lever, just think is wrong.
Labour too say social care reform is urgently needed, but have doubts about using national insurance to fund it.
We're concerned about the impact of loading more pressure onto the working age population at the moment. We've seen during the pandemic how supermarket workers, delivery drivers have gone out and shouldered so much of the impacts of the pandemic, often with great financial pressures on themselves and their own families.
The Chancellor and the Prime Minister have been in talks over the weekend, finalising the details of their plan. Politically and morally, it's not a decision they can afford to get wrong.
And Romilly, the government seems to be pressing ahead with another plan that's not popular on the backbenches.
Yeah, the government had already announced that vaccine certificates would be needed to get into nightclubs. Today, the Vaccines Minister also confirmed that they will be required for other big gatherings like sports events and concerts. The rationale is that this will help avoid another spike in infections and the risk of another lockdown. But it is unpopular amongst sections of the Tory party, and it all adds up to plenty of flashpoints between the Prime Minister and his backbenchers.
OK, Romilly, thank you. The man in charge of Prince Charles's charitable foundation has stepped down temporarily from his role after allegations of misconduct. Michael Fawcett has worked with the Prince for a decade, having once been a close aide. It's alleged he offered to help a wealthy Saudi businessman to obtain an honour. Our royal editor Chris Shipp reports.
In terms of staff who have been with Prince Charles for a very long time, few can beat Michael Fawcett. Here are the two men when our cameras filmed them at Dumfries House in Ayrshire in 2017. Fawcett is a one-time valet and royal aide, and until yesterday the chief executive of one of the Prince's charities, which is close to his heart. But in today's Sunday Times, Mr. Fawcett is accused of offering to upgrade the honour for this Saudi businessman, Mahfouz Murray Mubarak bin Mahfouz, who was already an OBE, in return for donations to the Prince's foundation. The tycoon denies any wrongdoing. Last night, Michael Fawcett stepped down temporarily while the charity's trustees investigate. It said the Prince's Foundation takes very seriously the allegations that have already been brought to its attention, and the matter is currently under investigation.
Nobody is suggesting that Prince Charles is taking this money for his own advantage. I mean, he is actually doing a lot of very good work at Dumfries House. The real question is how careful he should be with where the money comes from.
The Prince's Foundation is based at Dumfries House, a Scottish estate Prince Charles rescued in 2007. It runs a range of projects for young people, and like any charity, it needs donations. But for the time being, its work will continue without the man who has been a long servant of the heir to the throne. Chris Shipp, ITV News.
4 people have been killed by a heavily armed gunman in the US state of Florida. Among those shot dead was a mother and the baby she was holding when they were attacked. An 11-year-old girl was shot multiple times but survived. Police have arrested a suspect they describe as a survivalist, but they say his motive for the attack is unknown. Police in North Yorkshire have ended their search of a lake in relation to the suspected murder of Claudia Lawrence 12 years ago. They say nothing of significance was found during their 12-day search. And IKEA says it is unable to stock around 1,000 of its products due to supply problems. The company is the latest to report problems due to labour shortages blamed on Brexit and the pandemic. Tributes are being paid tonight to Sarah Harding, a former member of the group Girls Aloud, who has died of breast cancer at the age of 39. The music manager Louis Walsh, who put the band together on ITV, said she has gone too young. And bandmate Nadine Coyle said she is devastated. Mark McQuillan reports.
Sarah.
This was the moment in 2002 when Sarah Harding's life changed immeasurably, securing a spot in the band Girls Aloud during the burgeoning phase of reality TV. But after competing to get to the top, the singer has been facing a very different personal battle in recent months. She confirmed on social media a year ago that she had breast cancer, and that is where her mother, with deep heartbreak, announced her death earlier, posting, "I know she won't want to be remembered for her fight against this terrible disease. She was a bright, shining star, and I hope that's how she can be remembered instead." Girls Aloud secured 4 #1 singles, and one of her bandmates she enjoyed that success with, Nadine Coyle, said she was absolutely devastated tonight, adding, "I can't think of words that could possibly express how I feel about this girl and what she means to me." While Louis Walsh, a judge on the show which made her a star, said she was fun and loved music, dancing and life. "I will remember her with great fondness." Sarah Harding's talents weren't confined to singing. She developed an acting career which included roles in the film St Trinian's 2 and Coronation Street.
Just tell him Joni dropped by.
But she'll be best remembered as an integral part of a popular band and someone who turned ambitions of pop stardom and success into reality.
Sarah Harding, who has died at the age of 39. Still to come on the programme, as the Tokyo Games draw to a close, the secret to how Britain's Paralympians finished second overall, and what everyone loves about Dachshunds may have gone too far. But first, among the thousands of men and women who served for Britain in Afghanistan, many were not from the UK at all. They came from Commonwealth countries like Fiji. Around 1,300 Fijians are now serving in the British military, but despite their number and their sacrifice, there is no monument to them in the UK. As part of our series, Photo from the Front Line, we're speaking to some of those who fought on the battlefield. Paul Davies has been to meet Fijian-born Semiwara and his wife Linda.
Have you just come back from Europe?
Yes, today.
All right, yesterday, all right.
There are different kinds of front lines. Today, Semiwara is still serving his adopted country, overseeing COVID tests for international lorry drivers.
Swab your mouth 4 times inside and 1 or 4 times on the other, and then the nose.
Today's foe is a virus. But Semi came 10,000 miles from Fiji to help the British Army take on one of its most dangerous enemies. Like many of his countrymen, Semi was recruited in Fiji to fight for Britain, his first mission, Afghanistan. From the start, he recalls surprising those who trained him with the national habit of smiling, even in adversity.
Every time they were talking to us, we were smiling back at them. Even if they were angry at us, they were more like shouting. We were still smiling back. And then I think at one time one of them asked us, "Why do you normally smile? You guys smile a lot." I said, "Yeah, because we don't understand you."
Semi spent 6 months attached to 3 para in Afghanistan. He was sent to Britain's most beleaguered outpost at Sangin, where he witnessed the death of a friend and comrade.
Every single day we got shot at. But when that happened, it's more like it dawned into me that, yeah, this is definitely for real now. Things like this is going to happen. It's not just them on that side. It's going to take casualties. It's our side as well.
The death of Luke McCulloch is a memory that stays with him.
All I could see was blood in the head, but he was unconscious. Standing there looking at him. Wow. I didn't know that would be the last of him. Who would know?
He made a deliberate decision not to mention the constant firefights, the death and the injuries in the weekly phone call home he was allowed.
When she asked, yeah, everything's all right, everything's good and all that, but I try and keep every single day we get fired upon, shot upon every single day in Sangin, until I came back to the UK, then she knew.
Bonds formed in the most challenging circumstances, and Semi, a religious man, would include his comrades in his nightly prayers.
At times before we go to sleep, like in our small man cave, I sometimes pray, and then the boys could see me praying, and they'll definitely keep the noise down. Once I finish praying, then they'll ask, "Oh, did you just pray?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, did you pray for us?" Sometimes they ask that. "Did you pray for us?" I said, "Yeah. Definitely, I prayed for you guys. I'm not going to pray for myself alone."
At mission's end, it was only with those who'd shared the experience that Semi could discuss it. It was months later before he finally told wife Linda and the whole church congregation.
In church, he went up to testify. And that's how he told the story. And that's how I knew what happened. And when we came home and I told him, "Did that happen in Afghanistan?" I was surprised.
I just stood up there and said it like a story of what happened. I think it was just boiling up inside of me, trying to come out.
Having returned home safely to his sons, Semi decided his first Afghan tour would be his last. He now has work in security and latterly COVID testing, but is proud of his military service and is bringing his family to London to see the memorial commemorating those who fought in Afghanistan. Many of the nationalities who shed blood for Britain have their own memorials. There is not one for Fiji. He thinks there should be. Paul Davies, ITV News.
There's been more success for our athletes on the final day of the Paralympics in Tokyo. Paralympics GB won 2 more bronze medals, one for Kristen Coombs in the men's SH6 badminton singles and one for the men's wheelchair basketball team. It means GB finishes the Games second on the medals table behind China. They ended up with an astonishing 124 medals, 41 golds, 38 silvers and 45 bronze. Boccia gold medalist David Smith called it an unbelievable honour to be named Great Britain's flag bearer for the closing ceremony. His was one of more than 1,000 medals that British Olympians and Paralympians have now won since the athletes began receiving national lottery funding in 1997. As Lucy Watson reports, that one change has sparked a renaissance for British sporting talent on the biggest world stage.
Each and every memory is a display of sporting greatness.
Gold for Great Britain again!
And year after year, success has bred success.
It's going to be gold! The poster girl is the golden girl!
The sparkle of gold becoming familiar. But talent and gruelling hard work haven't been the only factors in GB's repeated triumphs. Dame Catherine Granger was an Olympic champion, a fan, and now chairs the government agency UK Sport.
It's just been this extraordinary time. It's spanned sort of over 20 years now, and seeing the growth in the Olympics and the Paralympics, both winter and summer, has been just incredible. And if you think of all your sort of favourite wonderful moments of the last 20 years coming from Olympic and Paralympic sport, it's thanks to the National Lottery.
Their help with funding has been the backbone of Britain's top sport for the past 25 years. Before Atlanta in 1996, the budget for elite sport was £5 million a year. By Sydney 2000, it had leapt to £59 million. Then, by London 2012, funding was at £264 million. This year, UK Sport has spent £345 million in the build-up to Tokyo. It has undoubtedly made the pursuit of medals easier. This week, Team GB and Paralympic GB reached a huge medal milestone, number 1,000, but it can't stop there.
The UK punches way above its weight in terms of medal success. And I said, we do want to make sure that working with UK Sport, that we invest appropriately in individual sports, both at the para level and other levels, so that we have a really, really well-funded, competent team for major international sporting events.
And never was collective national joy in sport more obvious than in the capital 9 years ago.
London 2012 transformed how we view Olympic and especially Paralympic sport. Increased funding before and after it has helped turn this small island into one of the most dominant sporting countries in the world, proving that incredible investment can lead to incredible results.
The rings remain in East London, so too do the ideals, according to those who won here.
I think beforehand it was kind of seen as people with disabilities just taking part in sport, but I think London 2012 changed perceptions, and it was people with disabilities overcoming those adversities and overcoming those kind of obstacles to achieve great sporting things. It's hard to put it into words, to be honest. I still get emotional coming back here, and so many great memories.
A constant cycle of glory has also spurred others on to greatness. We can't say who will win the next 1,000 medals, but we can say that sport has the power to transform lives. Lucy Watson, ITV News, Stratford.
In football, wins for both England and Wales have taken them closer to qualifying for the Qatar World Cup. England comfortably beat Andorra 4-0, but it wasn't as straightforward for Wales, who had to come from behind to beat Belarus 3-2. Dan Salisbury-Jones watched the action.
A throwback to the good times. England's first match back at Wembley since the Euros final had all the fun of this summer without any of the shameful scenes that marred the final. There was support too for the players that missed penalties in that match and were later racially abused. One of the three, Bukayo Saka, turned 20 today and helped set up the opener.
Comes back to Jesse Lingard!
Most of Andorra's players have other jobs, but they stopped England scoring another until the second half when Harry Kane lined up a penalty.
It was never in doubt.
Lingard then made it 3 before turning provider for birthday boy Saka, scoring in the goal he missed a penalty at in the Euros. A new decade for him and a bright new start. Wales faced a tougher task against Belarus, not least because it was played in the middle of Russia due to restrictions on getting in the country. It looked like it would be worth the trip when they got a penalty early on though. Captain Gareth Bale scored his first goal for Wales in almost 2 years. But Belarus hit back with a penalty of their own, and just a minute later were 2-1 up. Bale levelled with yet another penalty, but if they're to end the years of World Cup hurt, Wales must win matches like this, and right at the end, they did.
It's in!
Bale rounding off his hat-trick just in time to keep his nation's dream alive. Dan Salisbury-Jones, ITV News.
The Women's World Cup qualifiers start later this month, and it's been announced that all of England's games will be shown here on ITV. ITV Sports has won the contract to show the Lionesses' international matches for the next 4 years. A number of England stars were on show today as Arsenal made a big statement in their opening game of the Women's Super League. Beth Mead scored twice as they beat champions Chelsea 3-2 at the Emirates. Meanwhile, a major international between Brazil and Argentina's men has been stopped mid-game. Brazilian health officials entered the pitch to halt the match, saying 3 Argentina players who play in the English Premier League broke quarantine rules by skipping isolation. And in Formula One, Lewis Hamilton has lost his lead in the Drivers' Championship to Max Verstappen, who forced him to settle for second in the Dutch Grand Prix. The home fans cheered throughout as Verstappen led from start to finish. And finally, one of the world's most popular dogs, the Dachshund, is getting a makeover. The Kennel Club, which determines the preferred proportions of pedigree dogs, has decided the breed was becoming too long and too low. It seems many owners of sausage dogs have found shorter legs and longer bodies to be more attractive and photogenic. Dan Rivers has been finding out if Dachshund's owners agree with the changes or if they think they're barking mad.
It's not a question of how low you can go at the Dachshund Disco, but more about how low you already are. The Kennel Club is worried sausage dogs are at risk of grounding if the trend of shorter and shorter legs continues. The new guidance suggests tummies need to be no lower than a quarter of their shoulder height.
Do you think they're getting lower and lower?
They are, yes. Yes, they are. But I think if they've got good backs and good hips, then that's absolutely fine. But they are getting a bit low at the moment, yeah.
Kenny here just passes the new guidance.
So I'd say he's 16 centimetres at the shoulders and he's got about 4 underneath. So he's sort of at the limit.
Dachshunds are already susceptible to back problems, but with social media influencers sending demand soaring, the fashion for sausage-shaped dogs is putting canine health at risk.
We're really trying to reach out to those breeders who are perhaps less experienced and those people who may consider breeding, and really trying to give them advice and some guidance on what they should and shouldn't be doing.
The Kennel Club is sort of worried about their health and their back problems and things. Is that's a known issue, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like we've got ramps and steps everywhere in the house.
They might have been originally bred to hunt badgers, but now many appear to be only suitable for a life of leisure.
Are you a sausage dog?
Just be careful calling them sausage dogs to their face. They are easily offended. Dan Rivers, ITV News, Reading.
And that is it. The weather forecast is next. But from all of us here on the Weekend News team, thank you for watching and good night.